He was once a rock god, the voice of a generation that screamed his lyrics from stadiums across the world. Now his name echoes only through prison walls. And morgue reports, Ian Watkins, the former frontman of Lostprophets, went from idol to inmate, and this week to a corpse in a maximum security cell. The same man who sold millions of records, who strutted under neon lights while fans wept in devotion, was found fatally injured inside Wakefield Prison, a place notorious for housing Britain's most dangerous criminals. It's a brutal, almost cinematic ending, one that leaves people asking the same haunting question. How does someone go from sold-out arenas to a prison cell, and finally, to his death at the hands of fellow inmates? He didn't just lead a band, he led a movement. In the late 90s, when Welsh rock was exploding onto the scene, Ian Watkins stood at the center of it all. Lostprophets were the cool outsiders who somehow became the heartbeat of a generation. Their sound mixed punk grit with melodic emotion, their lyrics speaking to a restless youth that didn't quite fit anywhere. Then came Shinobi vs. Dragon Ninja, a single that hit like lightning, ripping through the underground and catapulting the band straight into the mainstream. Soon after, Last Train Home became an anthem, blaring through headphones, car stereos, and festival speakers from Cardiff to California. Lostprophets weren't just another rock band, they were the soundtrack of early 2000s rebellion. Watkins was magnetic. He had the kind of stage presence that made fans believe in him. Stylish, sharp-tongued, articulate, with that dangerous charm rock stars are supposed to have. To the outside world, he was confident and composed, the face of success in leather and eyeliner. But behind that charm, behind the lights and the endless interviews, there was something else building, something no one in the crowd could see. Behind the flashing lights and sold-out tours, the cracks had already begun to show. People close to the band whispered about Ian's ego growing out of control, his temper backstage, his reckless lifestyle, his obsession with power and attention. But no one could have imagined what was truly happening when the cameras weren't rolling. As the band's fame grew, so did Ian's access to his fans. Reports later revealed he spent late nights on social media, chatting with young followers who adored him. He knew exactly what to say to make them feel special, how to twist admiration into control. What started as friendly messages turned darker over time, with Watkins allegedly using his status to lure and manipulate the very people who idolized him. He was a master of charm and illusion. In public, he played the role of a misunderstood artist, cool, edgy, and magnetic. In private, prosecutors later said, he was cultivating a secret world of exploitation. Fan encounters that once seemed like dreams come true turned out to be nightmares in disguise. The descent wasn't sudden. It was quiet, calculated, and hidden beneath fame's perfect mask. By the time the truth began to surface, the line between the performer and the predator had vanished completely. In December 2012, the headlines hit like a bomb. Ian Watkins, the frontman millions had once screamed for, was arrested on charges so disturbing they didn't even seem real at first. The UK music industry froze in disbelief. This wasn't some tabloid scandal or drug bust. It was darker, unthinkable. Prosecutors accused him of multiple child sex offenses, including the attempted rape of a baby. Even seasoned journalists could barely read the court transcripts without trembling. In 2013, as the trial unfolded, the horrifying details emerged. Explicit recordings, online conversations, and messages that revealed how Watkins had used his fame to lure fans, even convincing some mothers to participate in acts that defied human decency. The judge called it one of the worst cases in British criminal history, and few disagreed. Watkins showed no emotion as the verdict was read. 29 years in prison, plus an extended license period, effectively meant he'd never see freedom again. Lostprophets disbanded immediately. Their music pulled from radio stations, their albums buried under the weight of disgust and disbelief. For the remaining band members, it was the end of everything. A shared dream turned into a lifelong stigma. Overnight, the world that had once adored Ian Watkins erased him. The rock star was gone. What remained was only a name etched in infamy. Wakefield Prison isn't just any prison. It's known as Monster Mansion, a place reserved for Britain's most dangerous and despised offenders. Serial killers, violent predators, and the infamous, all under one roof. It's the kind of place where even the walls seem to hum with menace. When Ian Watkins arrived there, he wasn't greeted like a celebrity. He was marked from the first day, not as a rock star, but as one of the most hated inmates inside. Prisoners who had done terrible things themselves reportedly couldn't stomach being near him. Guards kept him isolated for long stretches, not out of sympathy, but because his life depended on it. The threats were constant, whispers in the yard, eyes following him from cell doors. He lived under a kind of sentence within a sentence, the fear that every day might be his last. In 2023, that fear became real when he was stabbed and rushed to a hospital. He survived, but it was clear that his time inside Wakefield had turned into a slow-motion countdown. Even among monsters, Watkins was an outcast. Guards allegedly viewed him with contempt. Inmates saw him as prey. Fame had once shielded him from the real world, but behind those prison bars, it made him a target. It happened quietly. No warning, no public announcement, just a report that began circulating over the weekend. Ian Watkins, the disgraced former frontman of Lostprophets, had been fatally attacked inside Wakefield Prison. By the time the news reached the outside world, the details were already grim. 2 inmates had been charged with his murder. Neither has entered a plea, and investigators are now piecing together what exactly went down in those final hours. For a facility as heavily guarded as Wakefield, the fact that an attack could even happen raised serious questions. How did inmates get close enough? Why wasn't he under stricter protection after the previous stabbing? Prison authorities are now facing an internal probe for possible security lapses. Rumors about the motive have flooded social media and tabloids alike, some claiming revenge, others calling it a bid for notoriety, the chance to make headlines by taking down one of Britain's most reviled figures. But beyond speculation, one thing is clear. Watkins's story ended not with rehabilitation or remorse, but in violence. A brutal final act that felt, to many, like the inevitable conclusion to a life defined by destruction. The news of Ian Watkins's death reignited emotions many thought had long been buried. For years, fans of Lostprophets have lived in a strange emotional limbo, torn between nostalgia for the music that shaped their youth and revulsion toward the man who created it. Songs that once symbolized rebellion and freedom now carry an unshakable weight. For some, pressing play feels impossible. For others, the art stands apart, a relic of who they were before they knew what he'd done. The surviving band members have spoken publicly about the deep shame and trauma of their association. They've expressed sympathy for the victims, disgust for their former frontman, and the enduring pain of watching their life's work turn to ashes overnight. They lost more than a career. They lost trust, innocence, and a piece of themselves that can never be reclaimed. Beyond the band and the fans, Watkins's case continues to raise one of the hardest cultural questions in modern music. Can we ever truly separate art from the artist? When the creator commits the unthinkable, does the art itself become contaminated? Or can it be reclaimed by those who once loved it? And in the end, beyond headlines and hashtags, it's the victims and their families who bear the real weight of the story. Their trauma doesn't fade when the news cycle moves on. The ripples of abuse stretch across years, across generations, across memories that music can never drown out. Watkins's death doesn't close the chapter. It just reminds the world of how deep the scars still run. Once, he controlled the stage lights. He could make a crowd rise or fall with a single scream, command an arena's energy with just a glance. But in the end, Ian Watkins couldn't even control his own fate. The same fame that built him up became the echo chamber that exposed him. And behind the prison walls, stripped of applause, stripped of power, the man who once thought himself untouchable met a brutal end he could neither script nor escape. There's no redemption arc here, only a hard, unflinching look at how fame, corruption, and cruelty can coexist behind a charming smile. Watkins's death doesn't erase what he did, and it doesn't heal the pain he caused, but it does leave behind a question that lingers like feedback after the music stops. How do we, as a society, deal with fallen idols? Do we mourn the art or condemn the artist? Do we separate the music from the monster? Justice, in this case, came not from a courtroom, but from within the very system that once tried to protect him. And maybe that's what unsettles people the most, the realization that even those who live above consequence eventually face it. So now, all that's left are the questions, the silence, and the uneasy truth that sometimes the spotlight doesn't just reveal greatness. It exposes everything we were never meant to see. If you were once a fan, or if this story still stirs something in you, tell us what you think.